What is the craziest conspiracy theory you have ever heard? There was no Cold War in reality. It was just a cover for two allies to build super advanced militaries to prepare for alien invasion. Their mammoth nuclear arsenals are not meant for each other. This is all continuing even today, and North Korea doesn't exist. It's just a black site, off-the-paper testing ground for Russian-American super advanced weapons and technologies. Yes, how outlandish. Where can I read more? Also, movies are controlled by the governments to make people ready to fight when the aliens actually arrive, and video games are training tools to teach people to be able to handle the secret weapons they are producing. Spam was made so that the aliens that live here could eat. Apparently it's the only thing they can digest properly. So Hawaii is home to the most aliens. According to Lilo and Stitch, yes, it is. The show Sesame Street is an attempt to brainwash American kids into communist Soviet sleeper agents. I watched it quite a bit and I believe I turned out just fine. We believe we turned out just fine, comrade. Humans lived on Mars but ruined the ecosystem, so they took a ship and crash-landed on Earth, and that was the meteorite that took it, the dinosaurs. There's a theory that everything in the Bible that is pre-Noah took place on Mars, and Noah's Ark was a spaceship to Earth. I choose to believe this version. I'd say that whole hollow earth theory is pretty crazy. I actually really like the video on YouTube about this, and how aliens live on the inside. People from other dimensions just wandered too close to the poles and fell inside. Crazy, but a good crazy. More roundabouts are being put in by millennials to spite the older generation and take away their driving freedom. Said by an old person talking to Another One at the gas station after almost causing an accident in a nearby roundabout. I just continued pumping my gas as the guy rambled on. That logic reminds me of this story. My sister was driving through a difficult roundabout in a busy urban area. Sister: oh, I hate these circles. Niece: I know. Circles are so hard to draw. The McMartin preschool investigation. Accusation include children being flushed down toilets, animals sacrifices in front of them, secret underground tunnels, kids being flown to Mexico and back before the end of the school day, the teacher flying on a broom, kids being severely beaten, and large amounts of photos and videos of children engaging in acts. No physical evidence was ever located. The mother who first brought the accusations of abuse to the police had schizophrenia and was severely alcoholic. The police eventually decided she was not reliable and stopped listening to her. The case was built entirely on statements of small children who would get scolded during interrogations for saying nothing happened and praised for saying something did. One of the kids identified Chuck Norris as one of the abusers. Some people still claim the accused are guilty. I stopped believing it. Chuck Norris. No one survives abuse from Chuck Norris. Paul McCartney died and was replaced by a look-alike years ago. Wasn't Avril Lavigne also replaced by a look-alike? Why'd they have to make things so complicated? The Chinese put mind-altering chemicals in the plastic bands of ball caps so that when Americans wear them backwards, the chemicals cause them to do crazy things. I thought they were just being themselves. This one wins. Over here, guys, I found it. There was once a silicon era, where all life was made of silicon, and huge mesas and many mountains, in fact, are the stumps of massive trees. Many cliff faces and rock formations aren't just features of geography, but rather the corpses of giants. Edit: silicon, not silicone. English vowel. I have a tense relationship. Do you mean silicon? I mean silicone has silicon in it, but I could just imagine life being made of the same material used to make silly putty and spatulas. Craziest. Dragons existed, and you can see their skeletons in the topography of the earth. Basalt structures in the desert are actually the remaining stumps of ancient, massive trees tagged in with the giant trees of Lebanon. Reptilians, obviously. Greys are actually time-traveling humans from the future. Escaped to Antarctica, and UFOs are actually their advanced spacecraft. The moon is a hologram. The moon is actually an alien satellite that was placed in its orbit around Earth. Saturn is a transmitter for signals from extraterrestrial civilizations. YouTube is a great place to spend your time delving down the rabbit holes. For a sec I read are time-traveling humans. Now that's a conspiracy that would be amazing to hear. A friend of mine is a gold mine, but he's a flat earther, anti-vax, and believes tap water has fluoride to control the population. But his craziest one I think is he doesn't even believe in basic molecular science. I recall an actual conversation we had where he said, "I just can't see why you guys would believe there are tiny spheres that everything is made of. How would you know it's true if you can't see it? How would you know it's true if you can't see it?" Believes countless insane conspiracy theories that you can't see. It has become a pretty mainstream conspiracy theory that many politicians, billionaires, and celebrities are participating in a massive child trafficking ring. It is a more tangential conspiracy theory that they're actually torturing and murdering kids to drink their blood for adrenochrome because it gets them high or acts as a performance-enhancing drug for their lifestyles. But what if shutting down Epstein's Island cut off their supply of the good stuff and now they have to drink more and more blood to get the same high? Blood is very rich in ferrous iron. The symptoms of iron poisoning are dizziness, shortness of breath, fatigue, aches, seizures. Exactly the same as COVID. What if coronavirus is just to mask the symptoms of our child-molesting vampire overlords? Coronavirus. Phay-2 poisoning. COV. Fifi. Kofifi. I recently came across this theory. While completely outlandish, at this point in the timeline, would it shock you? No, it would not. My mother-in-law thought President Obama was in ISIS. She thought that the President of the United States was a member of a fundamentalist terrorist organization. My mom explained to me that Obama was actually the Antichrist. It must be a difficult schedule to keep being a communist ISIS founder who's also the Antichrist. My brother-in-law is convinced that Obama and Osama are the same person, in that the supposed body of bin Laden was dumped in the ocean to prevent anyone from running DNA tests on it to prove it was a charade. While not strictly conspiracy theories, other gems include, there's a nuclear reactor under the Pentagon. He knows because the CIA contracted him to break in. He got all the way to the reactor itself before revealing himself to a camera, then told them, figure it out when asked how he did it. The military confiscated all his money in a literal aircraft hangar full of exotic cars when he quit the very special forces. They're still trying to find him, but they haven't because he's better than they are. He wired an entire military base with explosives literally nobody can find. If he calls a secret phone number, it'll start timers on the bombs in a timer on Rumsfeld's desk. Airwolf is real. The TV show was made as propaganda to make anyone exposing the truth sound like a conspiracy nut. He invented disc replacement surgery when he got shot in the military, by cutting up a patch of Kevlar and telling the doctor to implant it. Belichick was ordered by the NFL to throw Super Bowl 52 as penance for deflating footballs. Deflating footballs was a conspiracy. They didn't actually do it. The other team owners paid off the NFL out of jealousy because they win so often. In a way I feel bad for him because he does have a proper diagnosis of PTSD, and chances are he was actually military in his early 20s. So as a result, what's really going on is the trauma has left him unable to separate fantasy from reality. I like that one theory actually directly contradicts the entire basis of another one. For those unfamiliar with, he was a fundamentalist born-again Christian who made a lot of comics and pamphlets about how you need to repent to be saved, heretics are going to D is a tool of the devil, and so on. He also had a massive hate boner for the Catholic Church, considering it to be the Babylon mentioned in the Book of Revelation and a tool of Satanism. Imagine every single religiously based anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, replace Jews with Catholics, and you have Chick's beliefs in a nutshell. He specifically believed that the King James Bible is the only legitimate Bible, and literally every other translation is a Catholic trick into making people use the wrong one. The Pope is the Antichrist and is plotting to proclaim a one-world totalitarian government. The doctrine of transubstantiation was invented by Satan. Catholicism is just crypto-paganism, and the veneration of the Virgin Mary is secretly a cult of the Babylonian goddess Ishtar. The Pope is the wealthiest man on the planet, in that he has a multi-billion-dollar slush fund he can use for whatever nefarious end he desires. Muhammad was a fraud who was manipulated by the Vatican into starting Islam so he could conquer Jerusalem from the Jews on the Pope's behalf. The apparition at Fatima was a forgery by the church to get Muslims to like them more, because Fatima is the name of Muhammad's daughter. The assassination attempt against Pope John Paul II was an inside job in order to guilt the Muslim world into being nicer to Catholics. The Catholic Church is behind the creation of socialism, the October Revolution, Stalin's purges, and numerous communist movements around the world. Pope John Paul II was actually a crypto-communist. The Jesuit order is the tool through which the Vatican controls the world, and they have run the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the international finance system, the Gestapo, the Cosa Nostra Mafia, the Club of Rome, and the Council on Foreign Relations. The Church organized pimps and liquor sales during the 1800s to gain control of the majority of the wealth made during the 1849 California Gold Rush. The Jesuits tried to destroy America by encouraging the South to secede, thus starting the American Civil War. When the Confederates lost, the Jesuits murdered Lincoln and founded the Ku Klux Klan. The Jesuits also founded Mormonism, the Jehovah's Witnesses, Christian Science, Unitarianism, and the entire New Age spiritual movement. The Church controls the mainstream media and has kept the abuse scandals out of the media cycle and public consciousness. The Holocaust was actually masterminded by the Vatican as a way to finish the Inquisitions and kill every Jew in Europe. Hitler, along with Mussolini and Franco, were conspiring to conquer the world and unite it all under Pope Pius XII. The Vatican has a supercomputer with data on every Protestant in the world so they'll know who to purge when they take over. That was exhausting to read. I can't imagine living that amount of crazy. One that's pretty harmless was the new Coke conspiracy. Coke needed to replace their sugar to corn syrup in the 80s because it was cheaper and more efficient for them to do so. But the taste was noticeable. Anyone who's had Coke from Mexico knows there's a distinct flavor change. Marketing people were terrified of people rejecting it. Throw in the gains Pepsi has been making, and Coke was in no position to give up marketing dominance by any slip-up. They invented New Coke as a way to make people hate the new product, so when they returned to the original formula, people would just be so happy to have it back they would never notice the change in sweetener. Thus, New Coke was never supposed to exist past that initial run and was merely a diversion so that Coke could save money in the long run while not losing a single customer.